Welcome to the Daily Climate Show. Coming up, we report from Sweden, where the country is pursuing energy security through an ambitious green energy transition. While Germany, with the same goal, says some states should turn over 2% of their land to wind farms. And a warning on warming, 200,000 homes at risk along England's coastlines. A detailed look at the damage to come from rising sea levels. Welcome to the Daily Climate Show, where we examine the big solutions to the climate crisis, track the changes happening to the planet and report on the impact those changes are already having. And we start today with news of a big potential solution, in part at least, to a problem many parts of the world are grappling with. An energy crunch intensified by Russia's invasions mean many are looking to exploit more fossil fuels, as we reported on the programme yesterday. However, Sweden wants to pursue a green and secure future with an ambitious energy transition. A state-backed project to produce steel without using fossil fuels, a world first, has started supplying to car companies in a bid to decarbonise heavy industry. Our climate change and energy correspondent Hannah Thomas-Peter is in Sweden for us at the Hybrid Steel pilot site.
I'm at the steel production facility in Sweden, which has the potential to transform the steel manufacturing industry. Let me tell you a little bit about it. This is the basic ingredient in making steel. These are iron ore pellets. Now, in traditional steel making, you would melt these in a blast furnace by burning coal. That's why the steel industry is such a polluting industry. It accounts for about 8% of global carbon emissions. But what they've done here is they've just decided to use hydrogen made using electrolysis, which is fueled by clean green electricity. They're using that hydrogen to replace the coal in the process. And what happens once they combine the iron ore pellets with the hydrogen is they make iron, like this. This is sponge iron. This sponge iron then gets melted, squashed into these iron briquettes, and they go off, get alloys added, and it creates steel. Now, it sounds relatively simple, but swapping coal for hydrogen essentially eliminates carbon emissions, and that is what is transformative about this technology. It's not widely available yet, starting to go into some products in Volvo, for example, but it is more expensive, and the big question is, will manufacturers and ultimately consumers be happy to pay that green premium to start with in order to get this technology off the ground and in global circulation?
Well, the Green Steel pilot is an example of how a country can continue on the quest for net zero while providing domestic energy security. And Sweden believes that the scheme can be an example to others, especially in Europe, who remain heavily committed to fossil fuels.
The need for Europe and the whole world to stop using fossil fuels is immense. That job must continue at a rapid pace. What this crisis, what this invasion, aggression that Russia is doing against Ukraine has shown is that we need to even further speed up this process. And if there is anything Sweden can do, is to lead by example and show how we can be less dependent on fossil in general, but specifically on Russian energy import.
Let's get a bit more of today's climate news now. 10 EU countries, led by Denmark, have released a joint statement warning of attempts by other member nations to water down the region's Green Deal. Austria, Spain and Ireland were among the countries who co-signed the letter ahead of a crucial vote on the bloc's 2030 climate goals, which are focused around cutting emissions by 55% by the end of the decade from 1990 levels. German states may soon have to allocate a minimum of 2% of its land to wind farms under a plan approved by the government today. The proposed legislation would have the wind power goals in force by 2032 as part of Germany's aim to generate 80% of its electricity from renewables by the end of the decade. Energy security concerns have sped up Germany's green power plans in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. At least 6 people have died in China and 200,000 have been evacuated as torrential rain continues to flood southern parts of the country. In the Shaanxi province, river levels are expected to rise further in the coming days. The damage in that area alone has already cost more than £13.5 million. Now, sea level rise will put nearly 200,000 homes at risk around England's coastline by 2050. That's according to new research published today. They're homes that are unlikely to be saved because they'll end up being too expensive to save or too complex to try to save them. The value of those homes adds up to billions of pounds, and the sea level rise is now almost inevitable. That's because glaciers and ice caps are melting and ocean waters expand as they warm. In 20 local authorities across England, thousands of properties are forecast to be at risk of needing to be abandoned. These areas are expected to have the most number of properties in danger, including along the West Sussex coast, from where Madeline Radcliffe reports.
Well, I'm in Ada on the south coast of England. It's one of the areas which the report mentions are being at risk from rising sea levels. And when you look at the town, it's very easy to see why, because it's incredibly flat and incredibly low-lying, built all the way along the beach. And the only thing protecting those houses from the rising sea is this big shingle bank that's been built up and the groins, those huge rock slabs which are designed to slow coastal erosion and try and keep the rising tides at bay. But these existing defences may not be enough, the report says, and people could still have to move further inland. The residents I spoke to here say that's an incredibly scary thought, but it certainly hasn't stopped the developers from building here.
People should not build houses here. This tiny strip, it's an amazingly small, a few hundred yards from the river to here. It's a ridiculous place to build houses.
It's very worrying because I'm just down there. I'm only about 5 minutes walk from the beach. So, yes, I can't imagine that happening.
Look at all the building that's going on along the coast here already.
Well, it's scary, isn't it? I mean, because where I live in Lancing, I mean, we're quite flat, so if it comes over the beach, it's going to go up right up to the main road. I mean, the main road floods now, it's bad enough, and they're putting new estates up there.
And finally, you might have noticed it's getting a little warm out there. The Met Office is expected to confirm today as the hottest day of the year so far, with the mercury set to eclipse the record of 27.5 degrees set in mid-May. They say it marks the start of a heat wave, with temperatures in parts of the southeast possibly soaring to 34 degrees on Friday. The UK reached 34 degrees in June 3 times in the past 6 years. But before that, the last time was in 1976. That is all from us for now. Thanks so much for watching.